A rusty wristwatch sank into the mud, its hands spinning without end. That was the moment I realized humans have tried to trap time. In a tiny circle they tied to their flesh. They dropped this one. Or maybe time escaped. I am just a frog in a pond. And yet tonight I feel like the last witness in a quiet crime. I call this story When Time Forgot to Breathe. If you're hearing my thoughts, it means you're close enough to the water to listen. So sit there. Don't move too fast. Time hates it when you chase it. The watch arrived at dusk. It slipped from a trembling human wrist, bounced once on the stone, flashed a tired little glint, and then fell. I watched it sink, turning slowly, like a small metal moon losing its way. The water accepted it with a soft gulp, and the mud opened its arms, the way it opens for everything that stops struggling. The tiny hands under the cloudy glass kept spinning in wild circles. No numbers, no direction, just panic. I tilted my head and croaked softly. Is this what they use to measure their leaving? You should know a little about where I live. My pond is not important. It is only a round bowl of sky, held up by damp earth and patient roots. The water tastes of old rain and forgotten journeys. Reeds stand guard like thin green soldiers. Dragonflies patrol the air, drawing invisible lines between now and not yet. On one side, there's a crooked tree that leans over the water as if it too is trying to listen. On the other side, there is a flat stone where humans sometimes come to sit. They arrive in pairs. One pair came often when the air was warm and my thoughts were loud. They would sit on the stone and throw small white crumbs. The crumbs floated. The words between them did not. I remember the way the taller one looked at the smaller one, like he was begging the wind not to move. I remember the way the smaller one looked back, as if already halfway gone. Time is strange around humans. You can smell it, like a storm, even when the water is still. One day, the smaller one stopped coming. The taller one sat alone on the stone, holding this rusty circle on his wrist. He stared at it instead of the pond. He never threw crumbs again. Today, his hand shook. Today, the rusty circle broke free and fell to me. I think the pond collects what humans cannot carry. I have heard that humans talk about time the way tadpoles talk about legs. Too much of it. Not enough of it. Wishing to grow into it. Afraid of what it will turn them into. Watching the watch thrash its hands beneath the glass, I tried to understand. If humans want to know when to wake up, they look at it. If they want to know when to stop loving, they also look at it. When to leave, when to arrive, when to say, I'll see you again. Always asking this tiny circle, is it time yet? Is it over yet? How fragile they must be to need a spinning pair of sticks to tell them when their hearts are allowed to change. In my pond, we do not measure moments. We only notice them. The first mosquito that dares to dance above the surface that is the beginning of night. The last ripple after a heron's beak breaks the water that is the end of something that cannot be named. I do not know how old I am. I only know the number of springs it took for the lily leaves to reach this size, for my jumps to become smaller, for my croaks to become deeper. Humans say, time heals. But from where I sit, time seems more like a quiet thief that steals everything and leaves only echoes. The watch in my mud is a cage for a thief that was never inside. I imagine how they invented it. Maybe there was once a human who loved another human so much that they wanted to hold every second between their fingers. So they trapped the seconds in gears and springs and tiny teeth that bite the silence into equal pieces. Tick. This is when I met you. Tick. This is when you smiled. Tick. This is when you turned away. They tied this little circle to their wrist, closer than a shell to my back, thinking, if I keep time close, maybe the leaving will be slower. Maybe the pain will be smaller. Maybe the goodbye will obey the numbers. But goodbyes do not listen. They come when the eyes grow tired, when the voice grows quiet, when the crumbs no longer float. They arrive without knocking. They do not care what the little circle says. The watch in my pond is still spinning, long after the leaving is done. So I think humans are not measuring time. They are measuring the distance between two kinds of silence. The silence before someone arrives, and the silence after they are gone. For a moment, watching the watch flail in the mud, I feel something sharp in my wide, green chest. What if I am wrong? What if this circle is not a cage, or a thief, or a measure of goodbyes? What if it is a mirror? When humans look at it, maybe they do not see time. Maybe they see themselves disappearing. Lines on their faces growing deeper like cracks in dry mud. Hair turning the color of morning fog. Hands trembling the way the taller one's hand trembled when he lost this watch to my water. Maybe the watch does not say, "You are late." Maybe it whispers, "You are changing." I sit on my damp rock and stare at my reflection. My eyes are the same golden coins they were last year. My skin is the same wet armor. But the way I watch the world is different. I used to only see flies and danger. Now I see unfinished stories floating on the surface. Perhaps I too have been changing, one unnoticed ripple at a time. Maybe humans cling to time not because they fear the end, but because they cannot bear that love, once full and bright, can become an echo so quietly. That small human who never came back, the taller one still waited. Until the day he dropped his watch into my pond and left without looking down. He did not come back either. Was it time that took them? Or was it just their hearts, choosing different shores? Either way, the pond receives what is left. The night deepens. The sky leans closer and the first stars blink like sleepy fireflies trapped higher than any frog can jump. I slide down from my rock and swim to where the watch lies. Its glow is gone. Mud clings to the glass like slow, patient fingers. The hands still spin in useless circles, but more softly now, like a tired dancer who cannot find the door. I press my belly to the cool metal. It feels like any other thing that has lost its purpose. A twig that no longer holds a leaf. A feather that no longer remembers the bird. A promise that no longer belongs to either mouth that made it. If this is time, then it is not a river. It is a pond like mine. It does not flow forward in a straight line. It deepens, grows still, holds the reflections of things that are no longer here. Humans stand at the edge and say, "We've wasted time," as if it were spilled water. But from down here, I see it differently. Nothing is wasted. Every laugh, every tear, every goodbye sinks somewhere. Into mud, into memory, into the quiet places where no more words are needed. The watch will sleep here. So will the moments it once tried to number. Above us, reeds sway, frogs sing, and the moon steps carefully onto the surface of my pond, turning it into a trembling silver mirror. I float there, just below the skin of the world, listening to the frogs' chorus thin out, one voice at a time, until it is only me and the sound of my own breath. Maybe time is not what they think. Maybe it is just the distance between the first and last ripple from the same stone. When the water grows still again, all that remains is the sky, waiting to be reflected. If you find yourself staring at a little circle on your wrist, asking it whether to stay or to leave, remember the frog who watched a rusty watch sink into the mud and keep turning for no one. Sit for a while. Let your heart be the only thing that counts. And if you hear me croak again, it means I've found another story hiding in the ripples.